I purchased a house, but my family expected me to accommodate my sister's family without charge. I refused, severed ties, and decided to move to London. I'm 35 years old, working as an investment analyst, and I've found success in my career. Growing up with my older sister, Rebecca, who was 38, I quickly learned that if I wanted something, I had to earn it myself. From the beginning, our parents treated us quite differently. When Rebecca turned 16, she received a shiny new Volkswagen Beetle adorned with a large red bow. When it was my turn, I got my dad's old Honda, which had seen better days with its 150,000 miles and frequent breakdowns. Rebecca has always been the golden child in our parents' eyes. She was the pretty one, the social butterfly, the one who could do no wrong. She married her husband, Daniel, right after graduation, and they soon started a family. They now have 3 children, Emma, who is 8, Noah, who is 5, and little Oliver, who is 2. They live in a rental apartment that Rebecca often complains about. Meanwhile, I've been fortunate in my own way. My best friend's parents own several properties and have been renting me a lovely 1-bedroom apartment at half the market rate for the past 5 years. They trust me because I've always given them no reason to doubt me. While Rebecca had everything handed to her, I learned to be careful with my finances. Since I started working, I've been saving diligently by living within my means, cooking at home instead of dining out, and using public transportation whenever possible. My co-workers often tease me for being overly frugal, but I had a plan. College was another glaring example of the disparity between us. Rebecca attended her dream school, with our parents covering all expenses, including tuition, housing, and a generous monthly allowance. In contrast, I spent my final year of high school applying for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing it was my last chance for higher education. With remote work becoming more common at my company, I only need to go into the office for key meetings. A peaceful country cottage seemed perfect. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and reviewed my finances. After years of careful planning and saving, I had enough for a down payment on a small home. I was in the midst of browsing real estate listings when my mother called, as usual, with impeccable timing. "Don't forget we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she said, her voice carrying a subtle command disguised as a reminder. "Rebecca and Daniel are coming with the kids, and please try to be on time." When I arrived at my parents' suburban home at precisely 5:05 p.m. that Saturday, their driveway was already filled with Rebecca's minivan, forcing me to park on the street. Inside, the usual chaos reigned, kids running around, my mother fussing over everyone as if it were a state dinner rather than our typical family gathering. My father had already retreated to his usual recliner with his newspaper, where he would remain until dinner was served. The familiar dinner complaints began circulating. Daniel complained about his demanding boss and tight project deadlines, while Rebecca lamented their cramped apartment and the children's constant needs. My dad expressed concerns about the economy and rising gas prices, and my mom frequently added to the noise by commenting on everyone's eating habits and portion sizes. During these evenings, I mastered the art of mental escape. I took advantage of the commotion by checking my phone under the table, scrolling through a charming small home I had discovered, 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a beautiful garden. The price was within my budget, and the listing photos showcased a lovely wraparound porch, perfect for a couple of rocking chairs. The thought of sipping my morning coffee there brought me joy. "What's so interesting on that phone?" "You've barely touched your food," my mother's sharp voice cut through the background noise. Her hawk-like eyes never missed a detail, even amidst the chaos. I could have fabricated something about work, but perhaps the warmth of my dreams still lingered in my mind, prompting me to be honest. "Actually, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon." The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear the ice cubes settling in the water glasses. Even the children sensed the shift. Emma paused mid-sentence in her story about school, Noah halted with his fork halfway to his mouth, and little Oliver stopped banging his spoon against his high chair. Rebecca's head shot up so quickly that I worried she might hurt herself. Daniel's rant about his boss trailed off mid-sentence, and my mom's hand froze as she reached for the salt shaker. My dad's newspaper lowered gently, revealing his astonished expression. "Buy a house?" my mom asked, as if she hadn't quite understood finding a house, but my mother was now in full swing and unable to stop. It has 5 bedrooms, no, 6. The master bedroom is enormous, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets. I blinked, trying to remain composed. Oh, and the backyard. There's already a playground installed. Can you believe it? And the location is just perfect walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library. I rubbed my temples, attempting to keep my cool. Mom, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground. Don't be ridiculous. She yelled, her delight quickly morphing into frustration. You can't just think about yourself. You need to plan ahead. This house is perfect. Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly. After she hung up, Rebecca began sending an endless stream of listings for large family homes. Each subsequent message featured another 4 to 6 bedroom house with multiple bathrooms, expansive yards, and proximity to schools and parks. By the 20th message, I had stopped checking. It was clear they weren't listening to what I truly wanted. Instead, I reached out to Amanda Chaw, a realtor with glowing recommendations. During our first meeting, I was struck by how well she listened. I want something small and cozy, I explained. A country house not too far from the city, with good internet for remote work. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables. When I mentioned my budget, her eyes lit up. I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday. The house she showed me was perfect, a charming 2-bedroom cottage located 40 minutes from the city, with dark green shutters and a wraparound porch that had room for rocking chairs. Sunlight streamed in through large windows into an open-plan living room. The kitchen wasn't huge, but it had been updated with butcher block countertops and modern appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated one wall of the living room, and I could easily envision cozy winter days spent reading beside it. Upstairs, there were 2 modest bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, which I instantly fell in love with. But it was the sunroom that sealed the deal. With windows on 3 sides overlooking a well-kept garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse, I could picture myself spending weekends there, surrounded by greenery and natural light. The owner offered a quick closing discount, and I accepted without hesitation. The following weeks were a blur of paperwork and preparation. I put down a larger down payment than required, keeping my monthly payments manageable with the money I had carefully saved over the years. While my family undoubtedly thought I was being cheap, I was actually building my future. Once everything was finalized, I planned to announce the news at the next family dinner. My mom had just started discussing another house that Barbara next door was selling, saying she'd give us, a good price when I interrupted, unable to contain my excitement. I've already bought a house. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Emma, who is usually unstoppable, paused mid-motion. I took a deep breath and began detailing my new home, my voice brimming with enthusiasm despite the tension building around the table. It's this beautiful cottage about 40 minutes outside the city, 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds. My father's fist hit the table with such force that the water glasses jumped. "Are you out of your mind?" he exclaimed. I had never seen him that angry before. Little Oliver burst into tears at the startling noise. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first?" My mother's cheeks turned an alarming shade of red. "After all those perfect family homes we found, why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" I asked, feeling as if I had stepped into a bizarre parallel universe. "Because we had it all planned out," my mom practically screamed. "Barbara's house would have been perfect, right here in the neighborhood. Plenty of room for everyone." "Room for everyone?" I asked, slowly growing confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged glances while Rebecca sat there with an unusually calm demeanor. Daniel suddenly became very interested in his plate. "Actually," my mom explained in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Rebecca, Daniel, and the kids to live there with you." I waited for the punchline, but it didn't come. Rebecca nodded as if everything was perfectly normal. "We're so cramped in that apartment." "So cruel to your own sister?" my mother asked, clutching her pearls, her voice trembling with anger. I grabbed my handbag and walked toward the door, their shouts rising behind me in a cacophony of demands and accusations. I couldn't bear to hear another word. I got into my car and drove home in a haze, their entitled expectations still echoing in my ears. The aggressive knocking on my apartment door began as I was packing the kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slipped from my grasp but landed safely on a mound of packing paper. "Open this door right now," my father's voice rang through the wood. "We know you're in there." I froze, bubble wrap still in my fingers. More thumping ensued. "Go away!" I yelled back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist caused the door to rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this." My hands trembled as I picked up my phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. I mean it." I pulled up the keypad and purposefully pressed the digits, ensuring they could hear the beeping. "I'm dialing right now." Dad's curse was interrupted by my mom's sudden intake of breath. "We're leaving," she said, her voice as icy as ice. "But this isn't over. You're making a terrible mistake." I slid down against the wall, my heart racing after hearing their footsteps disappear down the corridor. An hour later, Rebecca sent the first message, which included a photo of Emma and Noah squished together on their shared bunk bed. "Look how little space they have," the caption stated. "Emma can't even have a desk for homework." When I didn't respond, another photo appeared, little Oliver's crib squeezed into the corner of Rebecca and Daniel's room. "He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him." As I continued to ignore her, Rebecca's messages became increasingly hostile. They began arriving at all hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. "You always were Dad's least favorite," she wrote. "Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephews suffer." I blocked her phone number, then her Facebook, then her Instagram, but she kept finding new ways to contact me, setting up new accounts, using Daniel's phone, and even inventing false email addresses. The phone calls began to come from different directions. First, there was Aunt Marie. "Sweetie, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely you can find it in your heart to help family." Uncle Bob was next. "Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first." Susan, my mother's dearest friend, chimed in. "Your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family?" Even my former high school teacher, Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church, reached out. "I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister." They all sent the same message: I was selfish, heartless, and cruel. I should give up my home, my goals, and my independence to help Rebecca. None of them seemed to wonder why Rebecca's living situation was my concern. After 2 weeks of incessant pestering, I'd had enough. I went to my cell carrier and changed my phone number, giving it only to my employer and a few trustworthy friends who had not chosen sides in this fiasco. Moving day was blissfully quiet. I chose a moving company I had never used before, ensuring that my relatives couldn't track my address using common local services. The movers worked quickly and professionally, and by dusk, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. That first night at my cottage, I sat on my veranda with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars appear. There was no traffic noise, no sirens, no family turmoil, just peace. I felt something inside me suddenly relax, a tightness I hadn't realized I'd been carrying around for years. I occasionally checked their social media updates. Rebecca posted passive-aggressive status messages about family betrayal and selfish siblings, while my mom made barely veiled posts about ungrateful children and family obligations. Relatives and family friends made comments, everyone taking sides without understanding the whole story. But here's the thing, none of it concerned me anymore. Their comments couldn't reach me in my new refuge. I turned the second bedroom into a home office, positioning my monitors to face the window so I could watch the birds visit the feeder I had set up. The previous owners' raised garden beds were overflowing with herbs. I found myself proposing new ideas and naturally taking on leadership roles at work. This triumph, however, led to an interesting development. Rebecca's apartment complex was sold to a developer who planned to transform it into luxury condominiums. All tenants received eviction notices with a 60-day deadline to vacate. I learned from family members that Rebecca and Daniel were struggling to find a new place that fit their budget. The timing couldn't have been better. My promotion came with a significant salary boost, and I decided to use my bonus to make a down payment on a lovely holiday home in the mountains. It was essentially an investment, as property values in that area had skyrocketed. Today, I received a well-crafted email from Daniel, not Rebecca. Interestingly, he described their predicament and asked if I would consider negotiating housing arrangements again. The old me might have felt guilty despite everything. I could have thought about helping them. Instead, I simply sent them some local apartment listings that fit their budget and wished them luck in their search. My mom took a different approach. She showed up at my workplace, presumably having gotten the address from LinkedIn. With tears in her eyes, she described how she and my dad were struggling with their retirement savings and had always relied on the family sticking together to help each other in their golden years. I listened politely, then stated that my financial advisor had advised against combining family and financial commitments. Her face turned a familiar shade of red, but this time, in the professional setting of my company's lobby, she couldn't cause a scene. The family's social media campaign took a unique turn. They began writing about wealthy people who had lost touch with their roots, as well as stories on toxic individualism in modern society. My aunt even wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how money can change people, which garnered hundreds of sympathetic responses. But they were unaware that my accomplishments had drawn the attention of headhunters. Several prestigious firms, including one in Europe, expressed interest in hiring me. The idea of putting an ocean between myself and this drama was becoming increasingly appealing. Meanwhile, my new greenhouse was flourishing. I had started growing exotic orchids, which are delicate and require time and attention to detail, much like building a career. I was discovering that the most satisfying experiences in life require time and effort to cultivate. I joined a local gardening group, which became a fantastic source of camaraderie. These people had no idea about my family issues, they just knew me as the woman who brought homegrown herbs to meetings and asked in-depth questions about soil pH. It was refreshing to be judged solely on who I was rather than my willingness to sacrifice my life for others' convenience. Yesterday, I hosted my first dinner party in my new home. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered around my dining table to share wonderful food and conversation. No one asked anything from me, except possibly for the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent conversation, and mutual respect, all the things that family gatherings should be but never were. As I watched my guests enjoy themselves on the porch and fireflies dance in the yard beyond, I realized something important. I hadn't just purchased a house, I had built a life that was entirely my own, free from the burden of others' expectations and entitlements. Let them send their passive-aggressive messages, let them discuss family duty and obligation. I was too busy thriving to worry. The last pieces of my victory fell into place today. Rebecca and Daniel were unable to secure a new apartment. Their credit check revealed some alarming findings. They were currently temporarily residing with our parents, all 3 kids squeezed into the guest room. Meanwhile, I received an official offer for the director position in our London office. The compensation package was outstanding, including a lovely company-provided flat in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, professional congratulations flooded in. The contrast between my colleagues' sincere support and my family's harsh silence was startling. The most rewarding moment came when Dad called. His voice lacked its usual authority. He began by casually asking about this London foolishness, but it soon became clear why he was calling. The recent market slump had significantly reduced their retirement savings. They had reportedly planned to sell their home and move in with Rebecca's family in the house they expected me to buy. We always assumed we'd all be together, he added, his voice unusually shaky. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. I remained professional and detached, offering him the contact information for a great financial advisor I knew who specialized in retirement planning for seniors. My family was unaware that I had already made arrangements to manage my mountain home as a premium vacation rental. The projected income was impressive, more than enough to cover Rebecca's entire monthly rent. Strangely, this was not information I intended to share today. I held a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full bloom, with orchids providing a beautiful backdrop.